when you're watching Black Panther, this movie was a cultural phenomenon. This was a huge deal at the time because the black superhero kind of thing wasn't around. Like there were no active black superheroes at the time. So the fact that they had that real African superhero, a king as well, like a whole nation of like super powered, like high technology, super smart, like civilization was a huge draw. You know what I mean? It was a very cultural moment for black people. I feel like the African American community, the African community really showed up for these movies. And if you're a superhero fan, you showed up for the movie as well. So it was like a really, really big deal. It was really cool to see that kind of cultural moment. You know what I mean? It was so much support, from everybody. If you love comic books, if you love the superhero movies that were going on, then you were watching Black Panther. If you were African American and you wanted to see a black superhero on the screen, that was like your chance. You know what I mean? I feel like the only other black superhero at the time, or that like kind of opened the door, was Blade, but that was like however long ago. So it was really cool to see Black Panther. And it was just a huge moment culturally, and everybody was tuned in. So I really like how they dive into like Wakandan history at the beginning of the movie. I really liked. I really enjoyed the premise of this movie. It does feel like a Lion King movie. It has similar kind of themes or connections in the story. I thought that everything about this movie it was done well. You know what I mean? It's like one of those superhero movies that you can't complain about, but at the same time you can't be like, you can't like overpraise it. It was just a good superhero action sci-fi movie. Like I feel like they did it really well. This cast. This cast is without a doubt, it's so star-studded. It's got so many great actors and actresses. I thought that the Dora Milaje, was also really cool in it. I thought Michael B. Jordan was amazing. Letitia Wright, Chadwick Boseman steals the show, as T'Challa. He just does a great job. Winston Duke as M'Baku, Daniel Kaluuya. I mean, come on. They got Angela Bassett, Forrest Whitaker, Sterling K. Brown. Oh my goodness. The cast was just too great. You know what I mean? Not to succeed. A majority black cast is really cool. They did have some white people in there, you know what I'm saying? Not mad about it, but I'm just saying, like, it's, it's they throw a little white chocolate in there, you know what I mean? Anyways. So basically we get like a little flashback, or we get a little history lesson about Wakanda, and then we get a kind of like a flashback, or it's kind of like just like a point in time. We get sent to the past, not in Wakanda, but in Oakland, California, and we kind of see what they were basically doing over there. It's like, how is it all connected? And we see Sterling K. Brown as Njobu, and we see oh my gosh, we see T'Chaka back, but in his like younger state. I'm trying to think. Atandwa Kani, who is the son of John Kani, who plays T'Chaka in Captain America Civil War. So he was like the original king of Wakanda, and so they brought his son in to play him, and I thought that was cool. They also got Denzel Whitaker, who's Forrest Whitaker's son, to play a younger Zuri. So it was just really great, man. It's all around impressive. But anyways, we basically learned that Wakanda had been attacked by Andy Serkis's character, Ulysses Claw, and he stole some vibranium from them. And which is T'Chaka comes to Njobu to kind of like, yo, I need you to come home with me and help me figure this out. And Njobu's like, all right. So then we kind of see them go into the Wakandan spaceship, and they fly away. And there's like a little boy playing basketball in Oakland, kind of looking up and just like, wow, you know what I mean? Kind of like, am I looking at a UFO? You know what I mean? And then they fly away. Cut to present day, we see that this story kind of takes place a week after the events of Civil War. So we see after they get like Bucky frozen in ice and all of that stuff, they start going to do a mission of some kind. We're going to learn that T'Challa is going to be the new king, so to speak. And they're getting ready to do like the ceremony and stuff, but they need to go do something really quick first. And we see T'Challa and Okoye going towards something, I don't know. But anyways, they meet like a couple of bandits that are carrying other African people, or maybe they're what's it called? I don't know what they're called. Immigrants, maybe they were like being like human trafficked or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they're being sold or being passed to do something, you know what I mean? So T'Challa basically shows up in his Black Panther suit from Captain America Civil War, and we see him kick ass. I thought it was so cool the way that they showed him flipping and fighting, and how like he's basically invisible at night because it's so dark, and then the bullets, like the light of the bullets would like reflect in his suit, and then the bullets would ricochet off of him, so they can't really do anything. And there was this really cool point where T'Challa takes off the door of like the car and he slices it and then he throws it and hits somebody. It was really cool. All of that stuff was really impressive to me. So anyways, they did all of that to find Nakia, who is T'Challa's ex-girlfriend. And he's basically like, I'm going to be king and I want you there for support. So they did all of that to help her. And I guess she was already there on a mission to help these people, you know, so we'll see how that goes. But anyways, I also liked the conflict that Nakia had against T'Challa, where she was like, hold on, don't hurt this kid. He's just a boy. You know what I mean? He was kidnapped like everybody else. So leave him be. And then T'Challa freezes. I thought that was a really funny moment where Okoye is like, just don't freeze when you see her. And then T'Challa's like, I never freeze. And then he froze up. I thought that was funny. So then they basically take Nakia back to Wakanda after his father died, and now he's going to be crowned the king and stuff. So they want her a part of the... T'Challa wants her a part of the ceremony, a part of the ritual. So then we get a look at Wakanda. They come back, and we see it's like this awesome civilization protected from the outside world. You know what I mean? They have like this holographic outdoor bubble imagery thing where it looks like a tree and jungle and grass and whatnot, but it's actually an advanced technological city, which I think is awesome. So then, basically, we see them arrive. We get a kind of an outside look of Wakanda. We get an understanding that like, wow, they're really advanced over there. And then they arrive, they show up, and we meet Shuri and Angela Bassett's Ramonda, and she's like the queen, his mother, and then Letitia Wright, Shuri's his sister. And now they're all kind of like hanging out and talking to each other like, welcome back, Nakia, you know? And Shuri says, did he freeze? And Okoye is like a deer in headlights, and they start making fun of him. And yeah, they kind of have like a little funny banter back and forth or whatever. And so now it's getting ready for ceremony day. And this was the coolest part about it. I really liked how they show their culture in this movie. It's so fun. It's so cool. Technologically advanced. what was it? They're like having a dance. They're like having a party on boats, like floating towards like a waterfall. I thought it was really cool. Like that whole thing was just really cool to me. So, anyways, they get to ceremony, and now we get introduced to Zuri, played by Forrest Whitaker, and he's like, today is the day that anybody from any of the other tribes, of royal blood can compete to become king, and T'Challa's obviously going to be, well, let's just say he's like the primary candidate, and anybody else that wants to challenge him for the throne is able to do so on this day. Nobody there really competes against him or like wants to compete against him. And then M'Baku of the Jabari tribe, him and his group, the Jabaris, show up, and he's like, I will challenge you for the mantle of king. So now it's challenge day, and T'Challa has to accept his challenge. Well, he accepts it. And now they have to fight. And I have to say, I thought Winston Duke was very menacing here. I thought it was a good challenge, you know what I mean? Of course he needs to be challenged, you know what I mean? If everybody just gives it to him, I like that they were like, yeah, we're going to fight. We're going to challenge him. So then M'Baku and T'Challa fight, and we basically just see like, it was a really cool way of doing it. It's the Dora Milaje and the Jabari kind of like surrounding them with spears and weapons, and then they have to fight hand to hand, weapon to weapon, shield and spear, whatever they have. And we basically see, a ritual challenge for the mantle of king. So anyways, T'Challa beats M'Baku, but he lets him live. He doesn't kill him. He needed him to yield so that way he could still be leading the Jabari. So anyways, after all of that, T'Challa comes out on top, and he's essentially the new king of Wakanda, and he will also be Black Panther. So then they take him to this, what's the right word? It's like this orange sand pit, okay? And it's essentially where he's going to be able to ingest the purple heart-shaped herb that gives him his Black Panther powers, and he'll be able to visit the ancestral plane where his ancestors are, those who have come before him and died, right? Like, he'll be able to see all of it. And it's basically people of, like, his history, It could be, like, his family heritage and lineage, he gets a glimpse at. And then we see John Connie come back as T'Chaka, and they have a conversation. And then T'Challa wakes up, and now he's like, and then Zuri's like, breathe. I thought that was funny. So anyways, now we get to see T'Challa as the new king. Meanwhile, we cut to where is it? I think we cut to London, to like a museum, like an art gallery, and they're displaying some African art pieces, you know what I mean? Like masks and weapons and whatnot, things like that. And so this is where we get a first look at Michael B. Jordan's character, Eric Killmonger. And we basically see him talking with like an art curator or somebody who's like supposed to show him around the museum or whatnot. And she's showing him African art pieces, and he's asking questions. And then he's like, no, this is vibranium. It's from out of Wakanda. And she's kind of like, I don't, and he's kind of like, I'm going to take it off your hands. And she's like, this art isn't for sale. We're going to have to ask you to leave. And then she like sips some of her coffee or whatever. And then he's like, yo, you're forgetting about, you got all the security in here, but you're not looking at what you're putting into your body. She basically got poisoned or, she got messed up, essentially. And now she's like dying, and Michael B. Jordan's like, yo, can we get some help over here? Let's give her some help. She's dying on the floor. And that's when they get like an ambulance over there, like the medical team. And we see a woman take like a break off of her job. And they get over there, and immediately we figure out that like they're not a medical team, and they shoot two of the guys are like the security guards there, and then Andy Serkis in a really funny part, Ulysses is like, come here, we're gonna let you go, get out of here, and the guy's like, huh, he starts running away, and then Ulysses shoots him and kills him, and then Eric was like, yo, why didn't you just kill him right here? He's like, it's good to leave the crime scene spread out. It makes us look like amateurs. I thought that was really funny. And also pretty clever. So anyways, they steal the vibranium thing. And we get to see Ulysses' claw, his new arm. Because if you remember, he got his arm chopped off by Ultron in Avengers Age of Ultron. So we saw him chop that off. And now he has like this new robotical arm. And he uses it to basically reveal the vibranium in the weapon or whatever. So they take it and they basically run away. They're scot-free. You know, they leave and they secure the thing, and now they're getting ready to sell it. So now T'Challa, as the new king, gets word of this, and he basically says something like, he says something along the lines of like, we figure out that Ulysses S. Claw is, I was about to say Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses Claw is going to sell the vibranium to somebody in Korea, and we have to go deal with it. And Wakabi, played by Daniel Kaluuya, hates Ulysses Claw because when he infiltrated the border, or when he stole vibranium the first time, he killed Wakabi's parents. So it's like a really upsetting, heart-wrenching thing. It's very personal for him that Ulysses Claw has to get what he deserves. So anyways, we see them preparing for a mission to go to Korea, get Ulysses Claw, take him back to Wakanda, and stop him from selling vibranium. That's the mission. So then we see a small team of T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia going. Basically, they go to Korea to stop Ulysses Claw and put him under arrest. So anyways, while they're over there, T'Challa meets Everett K. Ross, played by Martin Freeman, who works for the CIA, and he's the buyer who's getting the vibranium from Ulysses Claw. And now T'Challa has to deal with the Americans, he has to deal with Ulysses Claw, and he has to deal with everybody else in the building. So while they're in there, they're just hanging out, chilling, taking it easy. And then Okoye blows the cover, and she's like, all right, they know who I am now. And she starts fighting everybody. And they get into a scuffle, you know, a little fight. And Ulysses eventually escapes. And then they get into this big car chase. And they just show off how technologically advanced they are, you know. The sci-fi really is sci-fiing in this movie. So Shuri kind of like remote drives a car and helps them like go into a high-speed chase. And then we see T'Challa catch up to Ulysses Claw. They capture him. End of story. And they're being recorded at the same time. Like, they catch him, but he doesn't kill him right then and there because the whole world is watching, and he's like, yo, King, don't kill me, King. And so he's kind of like trying to bait him into not killing him right then and there. Anyways, Everett Ross shows up, and he saves them and drives them all out of there. And they get Ulysses, and that's the end of the story. But then, in interrogation, we basically see that Ulysses Claw tells Ross how Wakanda has a whole bunch of vibranium. They have a mountain full of it, and they've only barely scratched the surface of how much they have. So they basically have an unlimited supply of the stuff. And Ulysses Claw is kind of like, I didn't take as much from them as you may think. So anyways, we get to Eric Killmonger, and he saves Ulysses Claw from his capture. And now it's going to be T'Challa versus. I'm trying to think. Is like they save Ulysses Claw, but they blow up the building. They like steal him away. T'Challa has to chase after them, but he gets blown away as well. Some shooting happens. Nakia was about to get hit. Ross saved her life, and now like T'Challa is basically considering the idea that maybe I can save this man. You know, he saved Nakia. So now they lose Ulysses Claw. They get like an injured Everett K. Ross, and they're going back to Wakanda. And I like the conversation that they have where Okoye and Nakia and T'Challa are talking about like, what are the effects of bringing Everett K. Ross to Wakanda? You know, he's going to have to explain this to the CIA. He's going to have to tell everybody that like they actually do have a bunch of vibranium. And Nakia basically appeals to like the emotions, like, he saved my life. We can help him. We can save him. And she's like, that he chose that. You know what I mean? They have doctors in America. They could have helped them out. Why do we have to take them all the way to our borders? Like, it doesn't make sense. So anyways, they still bring him in to heal him. And Shuri goes like, "Ooh, good, another broken white boy for us to fix." I thought that was funny. And essentially they heal him up and we're all good to go. And then we cut back to Ulysses Claw and we get to look at we basically get to see how what their relationship is. Ulysses Claw's like, "Oh snap, you know, we just got out of that alive. Thanks for saving me. Let's get out of here." And Eric's like, "Yeah, but before that, let's go to Wakanda." And Ulysses Claw's like, "You don't want to go there." He's like, "I'm pretty sure I do." And Ulysses Claw's like, "No, they will kill us. Look what they do to us." You know what I mean? He was like, "They brand us." And Eric Killmonger then starts shooting everybody, and he's basically going to kill Ulysses Claw in order to give him up to the Wakandans. And Claw captures his girlfriend, and Eric Killmonger kills her just so that he could get to Claw, which was like crazy. So then Ulysses Claw starts running and running and running, and eventually Killmonger catches up to him, shoots him, and is now revealing that he himself is a Wakandan. And Claw's like, "And here I thought you were just another American, crazy American." He's like, "No, I'm going back." And then he kills him right then and there. Flies back to Wakanda and then delivers Claw to them. In the meantime, before that, my bad, Wakabi looks at T'Challa and is like, "Where's Claw? Where is he?" And T'Challa has to explain that he got taken by Killmonger and how, you know, they don't have him. And he's like, "What a disappointment. I thought that you would be different. I thought you would be different than your father, but you're not. It's more of the same. Disappointment." So then we get Killmonger delivering Claw, and we get to show him showing the ring. Like it's a family ring of some kind. It was given to T'Chaka and Njobu, who are brothers, and they each get like a piece of like a ring or something like that. And vibranium, I suppose. So anyways, T'Challa, when Killmonger was, what's it called? He was kidnapping or taking back Claw, T'Challa noticed that he had the ring, the vibranium ring that's like, he also has. So he was just confused and he asked Zuri about it. And he says, "Why does he have this ring?" And then we get a flashback into the opening scene, which was Njobu and T'Chaka talking to each other, and how Njobu has basically betrayed Wakanda because he's the one who told Ulysses Claw to steal the vibranium. He told them about the border, and he invaded Wakanda. He killed W'Kabi's parents, and now T'Chaka's like, how could you do this to Wakanda? And then his right-hand man is Zuri. And he was just like, you betrayed Wakanda. How could you do this to us? And so eventually, we just kind of see Zuri explains that T'Chaka killed Njobu because he was protecting Zuri. He drew his weapon, he was about to shoot, and then T'Chaka killed him right then and there. And then they escaped, they left. And they left the kid there. And it was just heartbreaking, you know? They just left the kid there, who was of Wakandan heritage, of Wakandan blood, royal blood. And he just left him there. And T'Challa struggles with this. And at the same time, that's when Killmonger comes and delivers Claw. So then they have like a little council meeting, right? With the king and all the other people from the different tribes. And he shows up and he's basically saying, I want the throne. I want to be the king of Wakanda. And Everett Ross is basically like, he's an American. He's one of our guys, you know? He can't possibly be Wakandan. But he is. And he reveals the ring, and he goes, hey, auntie, to Angela Bassett's Ramonda. I thought that was really funny. So basically, now, Killmonger has challenged T'Challa to become king. And because he's of royal blood, it's within his right to do so, basically by their standards, by their protocol or whatever. So now they have to go through the whole challenge again, where he has to fight somebody without the Black Panther powers, and da-da-da-da. So basically, T'Challa and Killmonger go to challenge, and now it's Killmonger versus T'Challa. And I have to say, it was so powerful and emotional, and it feels like such a huge... It's obviously a huge turn in the story. And it's very important for Killmonger, like, how crazy everything has changed in such a short amount of time for Killmonger. It's just like, you work towards a certain goal for a certain amount of time, and then when the time comes, it's time to actually execute, it's time to fight. So now it's Killmonger versus T'Challa, and Killmonger is kicking T'Challa's ass, and he's about to kill him. But then Zuri interjects and basically says, no, your father died because King T'Chaka was saving my life. Do not take it out on T'Challa. And then Killmonger goes, I'll take you both, Uncle James. Stabs Zuri, kills Zuri right then and there. And T'Challa, weak and beaten and down, he's like, no. And then Killmonger picks T'Challa up and he throws him off the waterfall, killing him. And now everybody's like, oh my gosh, now Killmonger is the new king of Wakanda. Crazy. This story is just so crazy, dude. And in one fell swoop, he becomes the new king of Wakanda. And now he gets the power of the Black Panther. And we basically get to see a flashback with him and his father Njobu. And they get a nice little reunion. And so then we see that he's kind of like, all right, now that I'm the king, I'm going to do whatever I want. Let's start by destroying all the heart-shaped herbs. We're going to just destroy them all so that nobody else can challenge me in strength. And they were like, well, hold on. That's not what we do. And he's like, burn it. Burn it, I say. But Nakia steals one, thankfully. Okoye has to stay and protect the new king, or like defend the throne. You know what I mean? She is loyal to the throne. They have like a dispute Okoye and Nakia, and I thought it was really powerful that moment. Okoye and Nakia talk about how Okoye is loyal to the throne. She's the Dora Milaje. She's going to stay and she's going to serve Killmonger, even though he killed T'Challa. And basically, they make the argument that like he murdered him, and it was like in ritual combat. And so it's kind of like a muddy position. Is that like he was in his rights to do it, and he did it. So he's the new king. She's going to serve him as best as she can. And so now Nakia, Ramonda, and Shuri are leaving, and they take a heart-shaped herb, and they're going to go visit the Jabari tribe, along with Everett Ross. So he gets thrown into the middle of all this. So there's basically like the whole country's being taken over, and he's just there. You know what I mean? So anyways, and then moving forward, I just want to say that like if I woke up in a new country with like vibranium and whatnot, and then on that same day, like they get like taken over, or like they get a new king and they kill the current king, like that's crazy. That's just crazy. Anyways, they go to the Jabari tribe in hopes to like communicate with them, or basically to like, they were going to give M'Baku the heart-shaped herb. He was going to ingest it, and he'll be strong enough to fight Killmonger. But, that didn't end up happening. But anyways, Wakabe becomes Killmonger's like second right-hand man, and he likes him because he killed Claw, and he brought him to the place, and he's like, he's a real king, essentially in his eyes, I guess. And so when they go, Shuri, Nakia, and Ramonda go visit the Jabari tribe, and M'Baku shows them T'Challa, how he was found by a fisherman, and basically that he's still alive, but barely holding on. So they decide to give him the heart-shaped herb again, and that's where T'Challa confronts all of his ancestors about how they were wrong to basically turn their backs on the rest of the world, how they left the child there, how they've prospered privately, but to the rest of the world, they're suffering, they're dying. And that's kind of why Killmonger is like, now that he's in charge, he's going to distribute Wakandan weapons across the country and across the world and cause wars everywhere. So it's just like it's a big problem. So anyways, now that T'Challa has basically taken the heart-shaped herb, he's just as strong as Killmonger now. And they basically decide that like he's not dead. The ritual, the challenge for Mantles of King is still open. They haven't completed the challenge yet. So now it's just a matter of, okay, I have to get out there and I have to fight Killmonger. But I do need an army of my own, M'Baku. And M'Baku's just basically like, we're not going to help you, okay? It is what it is. It's over. So now Shuri, Nakia, T'Challa, and Ramonda all get ready to wage war against Eric Killmonger. And Everett Ross. I always forget him. So now it's basically T'Challa showing up and getting ready to fight and stop Eric Killmonger from distributing weapons across the world. And that's their new plan. So Shuri, Nakia, and Everett Ross, they all have to work to, they basically all work to stop the airships from destroying everything. Meanwhile, T'Challa faces off against the Border Tribe. They face off against the new, against Killmonger and all that. So it just becomes a huge battle. And we see Killmonger, he kills a member of the Dora Milaje. We see him fight Okoye. We see T'Challa versus the Border Tribe, like I said. Everybody's just fighting. And we see Everett Ross flying a Wakandan ship. and attacking, what's it called? And attacking those ships and whatnot. So it's two sides fighting against each other. It's like it's a Wakandan civil war is what it is. You know what I mean? So now everybody's fighting, and Killmonger basically stops the Dora Milaje. He beats them. Well, I guess it's more accurate to say he pushes them off. And then he fights Nakia and Shuri. And that's when T'Challa, like, rages towards him, and they fight each other down in the deep mountain of their vibranium stuff, and they fall onto the train tracks or whatever. And so basically, T'Challa proposes to Shuri to start turning on the train tracks, because then their Black Panther suits won't work anymore, you know? So now they'll both be without the vibranium protection of their suits. So with that, they were both like basically equal, I guess. Meanwhile, on the outside against the border tribe, we see everybody fighting, and the Jabaris finally enter, and they start fighting one another. And then next up, we see T'Challa versus Killmonger again, this time with their enhanced strength, powers, and suits. And now it's just a matter of, like, who's going to win, who's going to beat who. And I really liked I wish they had more chances to talk. It's disappointing that they don't talk a lot more. It's mostly action, you know what I mean? I kind of wanted them to dispute and to argue with one another a lot more. But in this very moment, we get that. We see how Killmonger is so damaged by the death of his father, how he's so emotional, and he wants to save the world, basically. He's like, help the oppressed people like he was. And he's just kind of like in a really dark place, and T'Challa's kind of like, you're becoming the people that you hate, Killmonger. You're not thinking about this clearly. And Killmonger's just like, I don't care. You know, they killed everybody I ever loved and I cared about. And now all I have left is this, you know, this throne. So they get into the skirmish one more time. And T'Challa stabs him just at the last second before his suit could, like, fully come back to, like, fully protect him. He stabs him right in the chest. And now Killmonger's like, oh my gosh. He's puffing, he's wheezing, he's like, He actually compliments him. He's like, good move. I thought that was a bit strange, but, you know, whatever, it is what it is. So now, as he's dying, Killmonger's like, you know, my dad was going to show me around Wakanda. He told me it was the most beautiful place he had ever seen. Do you believe that? Kid from Oakland believing in fairy tales. It's just so heartbreaking to see somebody like that finally get to this place, and it's real, but at the same time he kind of hates it. So then T'Challa takes him up to watch the sunset, and Killmonger finally gets to see how beautiful Wakanda is. He gets to see the Wakanda in the sunset glow. And then they finally he pulls out the spear, and he's just like, bury me in the ocean with my ancestors, because they knew that death was better than bondage. And I thought that was a powerful line. He pulls it out, bleeds out, dies right there. Powerful. And it just goes to show how it changes T'Challa. It shows him how there has to be a balance between helping people, not waging war, but offering refugee, just offering help to people who really need it, especially when they have the technology and the strength to do so. And we also see a little smoochy smooch between T'Challa and Nakia. They're going to be working together, and basically they're now now they're opening they opened Wakandan, what is it, like they opened like a Wakandan base in Oakland where his where Njobu was killed to honor Killmonger. And now they're going to be providing aid to people across the world. And we just basically see, you know, that now Wakanda is going to be a part of the globe. It's going to be a part of the world, offering the vibranium that they have. We see them go to like a world global meeting or whatever, and he's basically implying that like, I'm going to offer you guys vibranium. And then the end credit scene is, oh, by the way, as soon as the movie like cuts off and it goes to credits, and then SZA and Kendrick Lamar start playing All the Stars, dude, that was generational. That moment, you had to be in theaters to watch that. There's no other way to experience that. That was so cool. It was like the perfect song for the perfect thing. I thought it was awesome. I thought they did a great job with that song. That song, hearing it in the theater at the end of the movie, it was just, dude, it's still awesome to this day, that song. But like the emotional weight of the movie and everything, it was perfect. So anyways, the end credits scene shows Bucky now being named the White Wolf. He's basically now getting to explore Wakanda and rehabilitate so that he's no longer a, killing machine. And I thought that was cool. And then we get a little title thing that says, Black Panther will be back in Avengers Infinity War. And that's where the movie ends, dude. This movie was great. I remember watching it. There was so much hype around it. And the movie that's following it is Avengers Infinity War. So much about it is crazy. It's insane. But I think it was just so much surrounding this movie that it was destined to succeed. You know what I mean? The story was really great. The cast was amazing. The music, the soundtrack, the costume designs, everything from this movie was top to bottom was great. I thought this movie did its job perfectly well. And it made me believe in Wakanda. It made me want to go to Wakanda. It was like so cool, you know? I just really enjoyed it a lot. And the action sequences were fun. The sci-fi elements were definitely there. I think Chadwick Boseman, he's just a master of an actor. He did this role so much justice. From the little moment that we saw in Captain America Civil War to now having his own movie, feels very earned. It feels so cool, and they do such a great job. Ryan Coogler did a great job directing it. I feel like everything was going so well for this movie. There was no negatives for me, I feel. So, great movie. And overall, just so solid. 2018 was definitely a cool year for Marvel movies. So, Black Panther was awesome. Stan Lee cameo. Stan Lee cameo is he was in the Korean gambling place where Ulysses Claw was going to sell to Everett Ross, and T'Challa like made a bet or whatever, and he won. And Everett Ross was like, "Oh, hey, you won," you know. And then T'Challa's like walking away, and then Stan Lee's at the table. He's like, "You know what? Why don't I just take this over here for safekeeping?" You know what I mean? I thought that was funny, and it was a great way to incorporate him into the story. So, great moment. Overall, Black Panther, great movie. I'll rank all the movies at another time, but yeah, everything about this movie was just fantastic. So, shout out to Black Panther and R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. Just, you know, he was so amazing in this movie. He does such a great job being the lead and carrying everybody, you know. I think that his relationships and his moments with everybody in this movie just made it work, and it was so important. And I'm really glad that he got to be a part of that kind of, he had that cultural impact, so he's forever cemented as Black Panther. And I think that's really awesome. So anyways, that's Black Panther. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.